Hello and good morning, everybody. This is Jake. I will be your moderator today for this wonderful webinar we have planned for you. We have a special treat for you guys today, and we actually have a really full house planning on it. So this should be very interesting, a very cool little topic here. We have our good friends at Stack Rock Group helping us out with this webinar, and specifically Josh Webb. He's going to be talking to us about 3D modeling, and I think it's such a high attended webinar because this is the future. This is the really cool stuff. This is what our clients want. So I'm really excited to watch what he's got going on yet again, and you guys should be in for a treat. So a few housekeeping items. Just let's Q&A all throughout this webinar today. There's a little Q&A box there. Type in your questions, get those over to us. We'll answer them the best that I can here live, and then we can follow up if needed afterwards. If you need to chat amongst yourselves, if you have any questions regarding what other people are doing and their workflows, feel free to use the chat window there, but let's try to focus all questions over to that Q&A box. If you need to get out of that full screen mode, we do have the view option up at the top. You should be able to just exit that full screen mode, do whatever you need to do on the side there. So without further ado, I want to turn this over to Josh, and let's get going.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. You're good.
Perfect. All right. So I'm Josh Webb. I'm a 3D modeler here at Stack Rock in Boise, Idaho. I have a background in 3D from Full Sail University, and I've been modeling for about 4 years or so. So these are a few little concepts I've created in the past. These are just for my own use, but they were both created in SketchUp 2017 and Lumion 9. For this demonstration, we'll be using SketchUp 2019 and also Lumion 9. So this is kind of like a little process that we go through. So hopefully this is coming through okay. So we start out in SketchUp, and then we apply our materials in SketchUp, and then we will move over to Lumion and finalize the textures and materials, and then apply all those lighting effects and all the ambiance that goes around it. And so the first step that we do is the design team works closely with the client, and they create a concept in CAD. And so after they're all finished with creating the concept, then they will hand it over to us in the 3D department, and we'll use their line work and push-pull all the closed polygons and create the model from that. And then we will take it into Lumion and finalize everything. And that includes all the plants and effects, and we'll create the final set of renders. And so from here, I'd like to do a demonstration of how we kind of go about that process. So this is what the design team will come up with, and it's our job to take it and import it into SketchUp. And so once we import the DWG, it'll look something like this. And so the first thing I like to do is go ahead and clean it up a bit, put everything in its own layers, go about welding the lines so they're all one continuous line. And then once that's all complete, then I like to run an extension called Make Face, and it saves a lot of time. I don't know how long the delay is for the webinar. Oh, sometimes it'll do that, but you just have to go about closing all the lines. Normally it'll close them all for you unless you have any stray lines. Let's go to this one actually. There we go. So I like to orient all the faces so it's nice and clean. And then from here, we'll actually start modeling all the hardscape and all the structures in the model. So you can see here, there's a big shade structure and then the house. And there's a few extensions that we use to do these pretty quickly. Most of the extensions that we use are called it's from Valley Architects. And so for this, I just used the make roof. And it gave us a pretty good roof to go with. And then from there, we'll start texturing everything and making everything clearly different for Lumion. So you can see there's kind of like funky patterns here. This will be for Lumion's sake, so we can actually have more control over the textures once we import it. And then there is also, going back to Valley Architects, there's an extension we like to use called Make Fence. And it's super simple. You have a lot of options. So if you don't have this already, I highly recommend it. You can create a bunch of railings, many different types of fences. So here are a bit of the options. And all you have to do is select the lines that you want for the model to appear on and select which material you want. And it should just create it automatically and saves a bunch of time. And that is called Valley Architects for anyone that was interested in that. And so from this step, well, depending on the model, we'll start working with contours. And for this yard, I just use soap skin and bubble. And there's also from contours that we use, but that's for more of a dramatic site. But for this, it's just little berms. And so this extension is also very useful. So you want to have all your lines welded together. And then all you have to do is click the first little button up here. There's only 3 buttons for this extension. And the first one just lets you add as many vertices and faces as you need. So I'll usually up this to about 25 divisions. And then from there, you can select it. And then you can input your pressure. So for this, we'll do -5 or so, see how that looks. Oh, wait, just a moment. There we go. Oh, that is not enough. Anyways, it'll turn out like this, and that has a bit more divisions in it, so it gives a smoother look. And these hard seams will be covered up in Lumion once we apply more textures. And then so the last step we do is bring in our tree nodes, and this will help us place all our trees and plants in Lumion. And I like to run an extension before I bring anything into Lumion. It's the cleanup extension, and it'll just delete all the unused materials and textures and stray lines and just lines that aren't being used. And so that will help your file size immensely. And so from there, we'll move to Lumion. So this is the startup menu when you first log into Lumion. This is Lumion Pro, by the way. And there's a few different scenes. We usually just use the plain scene. And there's not a lot of like menu options, which is nice. It's very user-friendly. And so we'll go in and import our SketchUp model. And this is just the SKP file, and leave all the default settings. And I like to place it right on the origin so it's nice and clean. And I'll go in and set the position to something easy. And I like to raise it by about 10 feet or so. You'll see I did that in a minute. And then from here, you can go to the Materials tab and just select your materials that are from SketchUp. And you've got a few different options: nature, indoor, outdoor, and custom. So for this, we'll just be using nature. And there's a few different types of grass now with Lumion 9. And so there's the 2D grass, and we usually use this just for turf or something that's just in the distance that you're not going to see, and it doesn't add a lot of excess geometry. But since we're very close in, I'll use the 3D grass. And there's a few different options, a few different patterns. So we're just going to use the clean cut grass. And then for this, we're actually going to use 3D grass again, but something more like a wild grass. And before, with Lumion 8 and previous versions, there was only one type of grass you could use, which was found in the landscape. So the only option was to go to custom and landscape, and then you would have to go in and turn on the grass. And so there wasn't a lot of control over landscapes, but I feel with this latest version of Lumion, they really focused on exterior elements, because a lot of the versions I've seen they focus a lot on interior stuff. So this was a really nice upgrade. Let me get this grass back. And so these are all the default settings with Lumion Pro. These are not like any custom maps or textures and stuff. This is everything that comes with the program. So I'll show a few more materials. So we'll turn this into a paver, and there's just tons of different options, and they're all, for the most part, seamless. And so it just makes it a lot easier, and you can also bring in your own textures, but that's a whole another story. So we'll just pick some pavers and then pick some concrete. And so for this, I'll show you the reason why everything's so wonky here. But so if we go to the outdoor wood, there's this barn wood. And if you look, the grain, it wouldn't actually be like this. So if you double click into the material, you can actually orientate the textures and have more control over them. So you can add more gloss and give it kind of like a wet look, and you can discolor it and add any type of color you want. And then the relief, all the default Lumion textures come with normal maps. And so that'll give the illusion that it actually has more detail without actually creating any detail. So I don't know how well it's picking up on the screen share, but it just gives it a little bit more depth. And so if we go into orientation and come down to pitch, then we can actually orient that wood to be facing the right direction. And so same thing on this side. Go in, apply the barn wood, double click into that. Just orientate that so it's facing the right direction. And then same thing. So you can see it's really simple to create some easy, simple structures. Look really good. Were there any questions so far, Jake?
So we did actually get one that pertains to what you're kind of doing from the SketchUp to Lumion side, and that's how did you get the nodes to work in SketchUp before bringing them into Lumion?
Okay, so there is a diff. So this in the SketchUp file, these are actually just from land effects. And so I'll go in and close, since they're all components, I'll go in and close this face and texture it something bright so I can see it. And then hover them about 6 inches above the ground, just so the grass and stuff doesn't cover it. And then I'll have them, so it's basically just floating geometry. There is a new way to do it in Lumion, as of in Lumion 9. You can actually place objects right onto the node and drop it on the ground. But for this demonstration, I was having some trouble. I think it's with the version that I'm currently using, because we're using 9.0.2 and there's a 9.3 that's out. But I was having some bugs with it. But this is the way we traditionally did it in Lumion 6, 7, 8. And so all you have to do, I'll demonstrate that real quick, is there is a tree, or there's a big library of trees, transportation, people, and lighting effects, interior stuff. So for this, we'll just be using the nature tab. And there's thousands of plants and trees that you can choose from. And so we'll typically just use the trees that are called out on the plant schedule. But for this demonstration, we'll just be picking something. So let me find multi-trunk or something. And so we'll just place it right under those nodes. And so the nice thing about Lumion trees is if you create any animations, then you can, I'm not sure how well it's picking up, but the leaves and stuff actually move. So if it was a SketchUp tree, then it would just be pretty still, but it just gives it more life if you're creating an animation. And renders kind of gives a unique look into every image. So let me finish applying textures to this.
And while you're doing that, a lot of people have been asking just about the plugins in general from a SketchUp side. So at the end, if we want to just sort of recap kind of your favorite plugins and what they're called again, just so that we kind of have that list. I've been sort of answering them one off, but let's do a recap at the end.
Okay, definitely.
On those as well. So I'll let you keep going.
All right. So we'll apply a roofing material real quick. And so just within a few minutes, like you can already create pretty photorealistic fly through. And we'll fix up more of the settings when we take a render, because there's a few effects that really help bring it to life. So we'll continue. Let me just apply a few textures to this house.
And while you're doing that too, Sarah just asked if there's an extended library of online trees and people and all that stuff. I mean, obviously the default is very well padded, but do you know of any resources that could offer additional stuff?
So the best way we work around that is you can actually import your own models. So if you go into the SketchUp warehouse and you find a model you like, just save the SKP file, and then you can actually import your own models. So you just click this green button and you can select whatever you'd like. And so we have a whole library filled with boulders and stuff that we like to use, or just furniture that isn't necessarily in Lumion default settings. And so, yeah, that's the only workaround we have. I know there's some places that you can add 3D models into the default Lumion menus, but we typically don't try to mess around with the default menus.
I would assume that you should use caution as well, bringing in 3D warehouse models of stuff,
Yeah.
from face creation to insertion points to scale and stuff like that all matters, right?
Yeah. So I'll always bring in something from the warehouse in its own file. I'll never bring it into a finished SketchUp model, just because I don't know necessarily how large that file is. So I'll bring it up into a separate file and clean it up. If there's anything that I don't need from a model, or if there's just like, if it grouped like 10 times within itself, then I'll clean that all up before I bring it into Lumion, because up here in the top right, you can see how well Lumion is actually running. So right now we're doing 68 frames per second, and it'll tell you how many vertices from the plants are in here. And so you can see it's running 3.7 million, and it's not having any troubles right now. But that really depends on your computer. So we're running with a 1080, I believe, and a graphics card. And so after we stepped up from about a 1060, it's helped with everything, rendering quicker, less delay, because some of these files can get huge. And so that's why I also like to put it right near the origin, because if you're pretty far off, then when you zoom into things, then it starts clipping. I mean, obviously I'm right in this model, but just being probably like right here, it would start clipping, and it's just difficult to work in. So I always recommend just cleaning up your files and putting them as close to the origin as possible to just make it as easy as possible to work in. So we'll go and apply a few more landscape materials. And I like to use this one for just planters. I'll darken it up a bit, turn off the gloss and reflectivity, raise the relief a little bit. And from there, let's add one more material. All right. So that's about it. After texturing, then we'll go in and start applying all the trees and entourage. We also highly recommend using the layers that are available. So I'll typically put all the trees into one layer, and then you have control over turning them on and off. So I'll just select these trees since I didn't place them in the layer earlier. And you can actually just select it, pull out this advanced menu, and then select identical. And then you can import those right onto the layer and then turn those on and off. And so we'll place a few more plants. And you can also scale everything and also rotate it. So we'll just scale that up a bit. Just placing them right by those nodes.
All right, so Josh, I got a question here that just popped in that actually applies right what you're doing now.
Perfect.
Any suggestions for actually bringing in a large planting plan? So just a ton of shrubs and stuff into SketchUp and then Lumion. So would the nodes be the best for that, or do you just estimate the placement directly in Lumion
If
usually?
it's something really large, we'll kind of just have the CAD file open and go by eye and plant them from there. Because you can have tons of different nodes and different colors and stuff representing the plants, but that might bring down your file a bit and make it very difficult to work in. So yeah, we'll typically have the plan open right on the side and just place it by eye. Haven't found a great way to work around that.
Looks like we need a land effects plugin for that.
Yes.
Because to James, your question that just came in about if Lumion is actually linked to SketchUp, the answer is no. You do not move a tree in Lumion, and it does not move it in SketchUp.
Yeah, so there is a way to link. Let me open SketchUp again. There is this extension, and I'm not going to use it now because I don't know how bad the delay is going to be. But you can actually link SketchUp and Lumion, and so anything you do will immediately show in Lumion. And so that's good for placing if you have houses in Lumion and you need to put the driveways in front of the garage, but you don't want to bring in the houses into SketchUp, then we'll use the Lumion extension. And you can also move things around and kind of get them exact with that plugin.
So it does just move that node that it essentially started with, or
Yeah. So you can always refresh the model, which we typically do. So you just go in, resave your model, and then open Lumion again, and then just select your model, and then there's this refresh button, and then that'll actually update anything that's changed. And so that runs a bit easier than the live link. Live link can get kind of sketchy at times with big files.
cool.
All right, let me just finish up planting some trees around here.
So have you actually done a lot of creation of Lumion plants from SketchUp models, or do you recommend keeping with defaults? Is it a big time suck creating?
Yeah. Normally, if we need a very specific plant, we'll try to find it on the warehouse, or just try to model something super quick that looks like it. But for the most part, Lumion has such a big library that we're not really finding ourselves needing anything else. We'll try to find something pretty similar or just bring something from the warehouse. All right. And then from here, we'll start dressing up a bit with, there's a category of just people. And so for still renders, we like to use the 2D people, which is just like a flat billboard that faces the camera. And so those look best in still renders, but if it's video, then we'll move over to the 3D people because then we can actually animate them walking. But the 2D people are a lot more photorealistic because I guess they are photorealistic. So I'll just throw some people in here. And then you can go about like adding furniture and all that, but we'll get over to the actual rendering part and just try to focus in on something. So this is the menu for taking still renders. And so once you kind of find an angle you like, just snap the photo, and there is custom effects. And so all of these will give you preloaded effects for whatever category you're kind of looking for. But we like to use our own kind of effect style. And so my go-to is usually shadows. This will help you have a bit more control of the shadows so you can brighten them or darken them. And a few more. With Lumion 9, there's now real skies. So this helps add to the realism a lot. And so there are evening shots, morning, overcast, sunset, and these are all HDR images. And so they basically apply a dome around your model, and you can view it from any angle, and it just kind of fades off into the distance. And so we'll kind of change the direction of the sun. You can change the brightness of the sky. You can flip it. And I like to add precipitation, but lower the effects a bit so it's not downpouring. And this kind of just gives it a nice clean look. Good morning look. And then fog is also helpful to kind of break up the horizon line so you don't see that very much. And some of these menus are just for videos. And so layer visibility is pretty nice. So you can, if you organized your layers, you can go in and turn your trees off, or if there's furniture and you want to get rid of it and put it on its own layer, you can get rid of those fairly quickly. And some of these are pretty stylized, such as the handheld camera, fisheye, we don't really ever use. Depth of field, if you're trying to get more of a nice looking render instead of just something quick, and if the client is just looking to see how something would look. But if you have time, I like to throw on some depth of field and the lens flare, kind of give it more life. Color correction, I just like to raise the temperature a bit, and also the contrast. And what are some other ones? There's ways to add your watermark really quickly. All you have to do is select this and import the PNG, and you can place that anywhere on the screen. And so this menu is for more of a stylized kind of look. So you can really highlight the outlines, kind of give it a cartoony look, and then just like very artsy kind of looks in there. Right, and then I like to add skylight. Some of these settings are more difficult to see just within the render preview, but it's a bit easier to notice them once you actually render a final image, because everything renders. The shadows all have time to render and everything. Hyperlight kind of helps with shadows so they're not so dark. So I usually bump this up to 50. And then reflection, if we have like a house in the background, just adding that onto windows really helps bring the realism up. And that's it for the most part. So there's quite a few, but once we hit render, and you can also increase the focal length or decrease it. And just re-snap that. And then once you're ready to render, with Lumion 9, you can actually export some maps now. And so the main one we use is the Sky Alpha map. And so this will basically make a difference, a black and white difference from your sky to the 3D model. So you can go in and Photoshop the sky into something else if you'd like. And so this is helpful because you can easily apply a mask in Photoshop. But for everything else, we don't really use the lighting, normal, or depth map very much. And then so you can export a whole set of photos, which is this row of 10 down here would be one set. And so we could add a few different angles. And we could go in and copy those effects that we already applied. And just paste them, right? And then from there, it's just a matter of, oh, I don't know if the internet's okay. Just a minute. Okay. And so from there, you can just select the size. We typically just use desktop. Those go best through email, or print, or poster. So for this one, we'll just be using email. And then you can title it land effects. And then the nice thing about Lumion is it's a real-time renderer, so it renders things super quick within seconds. And so you can get pretty good results super fast. Were there any questions so far?
Yeah, we actually got a good little list going on here.
Oh.
So before I do that, just a reminder to everybody to get your questions in soon so we can get those handled. Sarah, actually, this is more of like one of these future feature types of things, or maybe just questioning what you do. But basically, mixing two grasses or ground types. How do you kind of accomplish that? Because she kind of does two SketchUp ground layers on top of each other, but you know, the bigger the site, the bigger the file.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So, do you have any recommendations?
To kind of get more materials on the ground, for like grass, for example, we'll go in and change it to the landscape material. And then from there, you can actually go into the landscape menu and paint your own kind of textures on there. So you have the brush size and speed, the tile size. And so you can go in and select a lot of different materials. So for this, we'll just use this grass. I think that's the same exact grass. Hold on. Yeah, and so you can go in and paint and kind of blend it in. If you decrease the speed and the brush size, then you can kind of get a smoother transition, and then kind of go into something else. And then you can also turn on the grass. And so that's typically how we go about adding a bunch of different materials, is just painting them on, if we need to.
Just skipping SketchUp altogether and just doing it right there in Lumion.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. If you want to do it in SketchUp, then I would just recommend, let's say, so we have this planter, and then let's say we want to kind of extend it out but make it darker. So I would create a new material, and then just use the existing but make it a bit darker. And save that. Oh, this isn't the one loaded in Lumion. Anyways, and so I would just go in and select my current planter, and you can actually copy the materials as well. And so you could paste it. And then if you wanted to kind of just bump that just a tad bit and get some different kinds of breaks in the materials.
Cool. Another one from Catherine, she's asking if you can actually geolocate your model so that the shadows and stuff are actually accurate, choosing the time of day, using that sun shade analysis kind of
Yeah,
thing.
so for that, we would turn off the real skies because that blocks out that setting of the sun study. So if we go over here to the sun, whoops, no, wrong one, sorry. Sun study, you can actually go in and select the location. So we'll just do somewhere in California. And then from there, you can select the time zone, daylight savings, longitude, latitude, the month, the year, the day, and then the hour. And that'll give you the exact like sun location of that time of the day, which is super nice.
Cool. And sort of along the same lines, I think, is how do you actually go about creating a backdrop so everything beyond the fence isn't just that standard green, but it's the landscape
Gotcha.
environment?
So if we go, we'll usually do a couple different things for that. We will bring in the actual map, like a Google Earth image, and kind of help hide that seam and place trees exactly where they are. Or if you just want to do something quick, you can go in, and what I typically do for small things like this is there's this option for clusters. And so it's just a big cluster of trees. And so you can kind of mask out that horizon line, or you could just go in and model more of the surrounding, the surrounding houses. And so that kind of helps with getting rid of that horizon line because that can really break the illusion of the photorealism. But you can also do in the precipitation option, there's this additional fog. And so if you bring that in, then it really starts to hide your horizon line. And so then we could re-render it, but I'd brighten that so it doesn't look so stormy.
Yeah. Tim actually says you can also use the open street maps in Lumion.
That's true. We don't necessarily use it a ton here because a lot of the projects we have, there's not a ton of, what is it called? There's not a lot of models in Boise where we are. So if we run that, then nothing really shows up. But that is a way to do it for if you're more in a major city. You can definitely use the placemaker or street maps.
All right, so we got a couple questions coming in. These people want to see night lighting or pathway or wall lighting stuff.
Okay. Yeah,
Can you
definitely.
show how to do that?
Yeah. So there is this lighting tab. And so it's got a bunch of different spotlights and area lights that kind of just help brighten that up. But we usually just use the spotlights. And so they're pretty simple to use. You could just place them. And from there, you can change the height, the color of them. You can change the direction if you go up to this little target. You can change which way it points. And I'll try to do something pretty quick in one of these renders. Kind of demonstrate that. And so we'll use the real skies and go to like a sunset setting. And kind of lower the brightness on that. And add a few lights along this path. we'll just raise that up. And place those along. Probably something in the foreground and background. Yeah, so you can get something pretty quick. That help kind of clear how that it can be used?
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I had another one come in about some festive site lighting. I don't know exactly. Maybe they're talking about like those string lights or the patio light stuff. Is that something that?
Yeah, so we'll usually do that in SketchUp. So we'll model the string lights like wrapping around the poles. And so a quick extension we use for that is called path copy. So we'll just get a model of a light bulb or something, or just like a little sphere, and have just a line that wraps all around, and then we'll use the follow me tool and then kind of create a chord from that. And then with the path copy tool, you can actually copy that light bulb to wrap all around that line. And then from there, you can bring it into Lumion and apply, there's these, we'll just apply it to this real quick. So I like to just use a plastic material and go into the settings, and there's an emissive. And so you can actually like get different colored lights. And these show up better in the render, actually produce like an actual light, but right now it's just kind of glowing. And then you could go in and change the color of that. Oops. Yeah, so that's how I would do any type of festive lights.
Cool. And for this file that we've been working on, what would you say this file size is? Is this about a typical file size that you?
For residential, yeah, it's pretty typical. We'll usually model more of the surrounding, so the client can actually see exactly how the trees, if they want any screening or something, they can see how that would affect everything.
So how large of a file do those typically end up being then for?
For this one, it is 30,000 kilobytes.
Got it. So about 30 megs.
Yeah, but we'll go into, sometimes we'll get into like 2 gigs, and it'll run just fine, because we'll model anything from backyard residential design to land mines or the big mines, and just big commercial buildings. So the file size can get pretty big pretty quick. So that's why I really recommend condensing your file size as much as you can.
Awesome. Well, I think we are out of questions now. So why don't we recap with, unless you have anything else, let's recap with those plugins so that everybody knows kind of some of those last ones,
Yes. So we'll
from
just,
Valley Architect, from.
yeah, so there's Valley Architect. It's just one plugin, and it's got tons of different options. It is a paid extension, but it saves you a ton of time. And so you can create fence railings. You can create a roof instantly. I'll just demonstrate that super quick if I have time. No, never mind, it's exploded, so it would take way too long. And then you can do siding to houses and stuff. And there's stairs, and I know there's a bunch of other things, but I haven't explored too much of it. So yeah, Valley Architects is a go-to for closing the line work. That is called Make Face, and that'll make it just super quick to close your site plan. And then what was the other one I used? There was Weld, um, and so that just welds all your lines together, so it's one continuous line instead of if if you're on an arc like this, instead of selecting all of them, just select like a big group and then run the weld extension. I have it as a shortcut as W, and so it just welds all those lines together. And I think, oh, and then there was the soap skin. That one's free and easy, pretty easy to find. But yeah, that'll save you a ton of time to create berms. I think that was it. Oh, and cleanup. The cleanup extension. So there's a ton of different options. You can just go down the list and check what you want. Hopefully that covered all of them. Did I lose the connection? Can't hear you.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Tim asked for one last plugin thought, which is for any curbs or ADA ramps. I know there's definitely some copy long curve and different ones that I've played with that does that really well. But specifically to create those, I believe Valley Architect does that as well with is it the Create Roads or Instant Road?
Yeah, I believe so.
You can actually set curbs and sidewalks and different things like that, which is actually super cool and really fun to do. So follows terrain. It does all kinds of different things. So
yeah,
that Valley Architect one is a pretty key one.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I don't have like all of the menus set up because there's so many options. But yeah, there's instant door and window, so you can create doors and windows super fast, and it'll punch out the holes for you, so you don't have to go in and pull those out. Yeah, there's tons of them. So,
well, cool. So I think as a sign off, why don't you go back to Lumion and flood your plan, because somebody asked about water features, and so
yeah.
let's just turn on the water and let's wash this thing out.
Yeah. Okay. So there is an option to just turn on the ocean, and it's not showing up. Oh, it's underneath. Yeah. So you can flood it if you need to. There's a lot of different water options too. So in the materials, you can change in the nature category. There's water, and just do a bunch of different waters: ocean water, pool water, a swampy water. So
Very cool. So I think people really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys can kind of use some of these little tips and tricks and recommendations from how to kind of set some stuff up. But feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions, and have a great weekend.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.